saw one patient pass away, but there was this one particular woman in one particular room that was, no one ever came to visit her. I lived a very long and hard life. I have children and grandchildren that don't wish to see me, and I've made really poor choices. And she said that God has forgiven me.
Hello and welcome to Wisdom Stripes. My name is Meg Tuohey. On today's podcast, we're welcoming Douglas James, entrepreneur, founder, and CEO of a SaaS, do we call it SaaS? SaaS platform called leadfi.ai. Now, Douglas's story wasn't always one of business success, optimization, and coaching. He actually had a difficult time growing up, after which he found himself in the Marines for over 10 years. He found his business accolades came after honorable discharge in 2019. Now, Douglas is an Inc. 5000 entrepreneur, ranking in the top 700, marking his company as one of the fastest growing in the US. And this is Wisdom Stripes, your no-nonsense, fierce fairy godparents turning pain and confusion into clarity and confidence. To discuss his life's work, lessons, and of course, wisdom, I'd like to welcome Douglas James. Douglas, we always start with the same question for our guests, and that is, what wisdom would you like a listener to come away with today?
Yeah, Meg, thank you so much for having me. Man, that's a really deep question. I don't ever want to be on my deathbed and be in a room that's completely empty moments before I die. I think that might be the scariest thing ever. So I think, continuing to go through life, living in integrity, giving before receiving, doing right by others is really important, you know. Because once you're gone, you have the memories, right, of friends, family, loved ones, what they say of you when you're no longer here. And I just want to, my goal that I do every day is just to make sure that I had at least a positive or profound effect on the individuals that I come across every day. And that shows up, in my work, church, uh, whether it's at the gym or at a business meeting. You don't want to die alone. And that's something that I think about every day. And I actually have a personal story of something that I experienced when I was in the military that kind of put that image in my head that makes me just want to strive every day. So,
Would you mind sharing that with us?
yeah, I can. Yeah. So I was actually in the Navy for 10 years. I served with the Marines as well. I got to travel all over the world. I got to see beautiful things. I built schools for kids in Papua New Guinea, Fiji, and the Philippines. Went on humanitarian missions. Trained with the Marines, deployed, saw things that no human should ever see. But it was back when I first started in the Navy. I was a hospital corpsman, so I'm the person that you go to if you're sick, especially first line defense Marines. I was doing rotations in a ward at a hospital, right? And in the area I was working was basically, you go up there in this part of the hospital if you're terminally ill, and I was just a corpsman. I was there for just 2 weeks, and I had to take care of all these patients. There were elderly patients, anything under the sun you can think of to make sure that they are taken care of and cleaned. I did. Okay. Um, and this is generally, like I said, in the last 2 to 4 weeks of their life, and so during that time though, I didn't see any patients pass away, but I saw one patient pass away. And, every time I check in for my shift, it was a couple weeks of night shifts. So it was 12-hour shifts, basically 14 days straight. And, I knew basically every patient on that floor by name. And every patient always had family visiting. Okay. It could have been aunts, uncles, grandchildren, brothers, sisters, right? Visiting. And it was always really busy because there was always family coming and going, dropping off flowers, things of that nature. But there was this one particular woman in one particular room that was, no one ever came to visit her. She checked in, I think. Oh my gosh, I'm already like, it's already bringing me back. She checked in like a day or two after I started, and a few days went by, and I'm like, okay, someone's going to come visit her, like all the other patients, right? And bring her flowers and tell her how much they love her. But a week went by, no one came, and then 10 days went by, no one came. And I'm like, what is going on with this lady, And I would go in there, clean her, feed her, all the things I would do in my normal shift, and she would never say anything. She had a straight face. She didn't ask for anything. She just allowed us to feed her, bathe her, and all that. And I started to feel really sad. I'm like, man, no one's here for this woman. Like, she was elderly, and she was really sick, and it was, I think, maybe the 13th or 14th day. It was one of my last days in rotation on the ward, and I went in there to check in on her. And as soon as she saw me come into the room, she looked right at me, and she gave me the biggest smile I've ever seen in my life. And mind you, before that, no emotional reaction or anything. So when I saw her, I was like, wow, okay, there's life here. uh, but she gave me this big smile, and I put my hand on her hand, and she put her other hand on top of my hand. And all she told me was, she said this: I lived a very long and hard life. I have children and grandchildren that don't wish to see me, and I've made really poor choices. And she said that God has forgiven me. and and she said that, I thank you for taking care of me these past few days. And she told me that, may God bless you and your family, and uh, and she just said thank you. And then her breathing slowed, and it was, no one was in the room. It was really, really quiet. You can hear, like, I still remember in my brain hearing the heartbeat monitor, like, boop, boop, boop. And then it got slower and slower and slower until it flatlined right there in front of me. And then she passed away. Um, and when that happened, I completely, like, went white shock. I couldn't even I couldn't even call for help. I felt like there was some type of exchange of energy that I can't even hardly explain to you. But I felt her leave the room. I felt her soul leave the room. And I just remember feeling so much love and gratitude from her in that final moment, that I couldn't move. And I think the scariest thing for me after that was just knowing that no one was there for her. No one came to see her for 2 weeks. It's clear to me that whatever she did in her life, it had some type of very negative effect on the people that she did love, the people that she did care for. And I ultimately don't ever want to be in a situation where that's me. And it really scared the crap out of me. And I prayed, God rest her soul. I'm no perfect angel. I'm no perfect person. I try to live my life in integrity, and always do the right thing, because and take care of people, and always give value where I can, because I just know the day is going to come where it's my time to be on that bed. What is the situation going to be?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be alone. And I want my children to know that they have a amazing example of what it's like to be a man. Somebody that provides for their family
Mm.
and does right by others. And that's really all I care about. So That's that's what happened.
Thank you for sharing that so openly. I feel like death is a frontier that all of us cross. It's a frontier where we must walk it alone, but we can be sent across the bridge um, with people on one side, right? And the way you described your experience of her crossing that bridge is akin to other experiences I've heard and experienced myself when people die. I do have this inkling to ask you this question. The question is that memorable moment happened in your formative years, I guess in your 20s. Is that right?
Yeah, I must have been 21 years old.
So pretty formative. Beautiful brains not even finished developing or growing. You have this sacred moment with a stranger that changed your life forever. And the thing that I wonder is, did it match anything else that had come in your first 21 years? Or was it this standalone experience that shaped you going forward?
Man, that experience certainly has had a profound impact on me. But other experiences, I would say that experience, along with a handful of others, like you know how you go through your life and then you're like, what are the top moments you remember in your life? I
Yeah.
definitely have like 4 or 5 of those, you know,
Mm.
and the other moments previous before I was 21 that kind of shaped me to be the man that I am today, um, was really just collectively looking at my childhood and watching how my dad was in the role of being a husband and being a father.
Mm.
Um, and if you think this story is about to sound good, I'm sorry to ruin it for you, but it's about to not sound good.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched, my dad, abuse drugs, abuse alcohol. I watched him physically verbal abuse, you know, my mom. To me, at times, I have a younger sister as well. uh, I watched him do things that a normal person, I mean, that is a rational individual that with good morals probably wouldn't do, like shoplift or get into fights with random people, it's just endless the things that I saw growing up as a kid. So, uh, and they're going through that whole experience. When you're a kid, I'm a dad now. I have a 5.5 and a 2-year old, both girls, and they watch literally everything that you do, right? And they take what you do and what you say as gold, as truth, as the way it's supposed to be, and they model you. And uh, I thought what my dad was doing was normal. Everything that I saw, there was times where it made me emotional, like I got upset and I would cry and I would ask daddy, like, why? And but I was like, this is my dad, he knows best, right? He raised me, right? And my mom, worked nights in the hospital for 30 plus years as a respiratory therapist to take care of our family. And it wasn't until about maybe 15, I think I was 15 and a half or 16 years old, where I slowly started to get like fed up with my dad and started to recognize, look, this is not okay. I started to become my own man and I could be able to discern right and for wrong. And I challenged my father when I was like 16 years old and I confronted him. And I'm like, I don't like what you do. I don't like your behavior. I don't agree with the things that you do and say, and he didn't like that. And we got into a confrontation and I left. I moved out of my house at 16 years old. I moved into my best friend's parents' home at the time. And I lived there for many months, several months, until I moved in with my grandparents, which is my dad's parents, uh, back in New Orleans, Louisiana, or the area of New Orleans. And for me, the childhood trauma, we all have trauma. We all have things that probably we've experienced or seen growing up that do affect us how we become, through adulthood, right? And there's things that if you don't address them, they show up in your behavior and how you treat other people,
Hmm.
right? And I was, I all the way up until maybe a few years ago, I certainly still had unaddressed trauma, and then you pile in like serving in the military, those experience and PTSD and deployments. Man, there's a lot of things emotionally, mentally that I've had to endure and overcome. Um, but the good thing is I didn't do it alone. I sought out therapy. I sought out professionals, um, psychiatrists, people that I can talk to and really understand what my emotions and what I was feeling, what I was thinking, and try to make sense of it. And some of my behavior. Like I said, I'm not a perfect person. There's things that I've done that to this day I'm like, man, really? I thought I was supposed to set the example for my children, but I'm still faltering to these behaviors. Like, what is up? And it could be small things, but it could be big things too. So it seems like a little bit of a therapy session for me. um, but I do it for my family.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, man, like it's my girls, and they're gonna grow up and they it's like, what are they gonna what's their memory of gonna be of me? I think about that. My memory unfortunately isn't the best. There was beautiful moments when I was a child, right? But there was many depressing, frightening moments that I never wanted my child to ever see. Like no child should ever see the things that I saw, you know? Um, I'm just very fortunate to have a mother that did everything she could do to take care of us because she worked nights, she put food on the table, and then she cleaned, she clothed us, put us on the bus to school. And if it wasn't for my mom, you know, I don't know where I would be. I might be dead or in jail, to be honest. Either one of the two.
And so we look at you being that cycle breaker. And I just feel like there's this shimmer that I'm trying to see if it connects, and it really might not. So let me try asking this question one more time. And if it's not a thing, it's totally fine if it's not a thing. If it seems to me, knowing more about you, and thank you for sharing so openly, that resonance from your childhood and that lady that you witnessed and shepherded across the bridge from life to death, like there is like a string between those two things. And so the question I think I'm circling is around, she seems like a bit of a lighthouse, like there's some kind of um, setup between you and her, perhaps from a God perspective, where you were able to usher her across the bridge and be her last point of contact. And she was able to transfer something really important to you that you needed at the tender age of 21. And it just feels like some kind of sacred contract. I wonder, is that what it was like for you, or have I got that completely wrong?
Man, you know what? I feel like you hit the nail on the head because I've talked to. There's a reason why this conversation has gone the way it's gone. Okay, and I've spoken to. You're very intuitive, by the way, and I'm so glad that we've met, and you can see through this a bit. I've spoken to other professionals, and these two particular stories do come up very closely, like they have today, often. Um, and I do feel like it was almost a passing of the baton. Like whatever she saw in me before, I think she saw brokenness. So she saw someone that came from brokenness that was healing. And she probably saw something in me that she saw in herself at one time that uh, reminded her. And it was almost like a passing of the torch, you know? And she was setting an example of what not to be. She was giving me another reference point, like, if I continue down the path of destruction, like my father kind of basically raised me to, then I could be where she's at now. And that's the connection that I made, and that is connection that I really wish that I could pass to my father, or any individual that's living with trauma, that's disrespecting people, that's performing these horrible behaviors. You know, your time's gonna that hourglass is upside down, and that sand is going, and there's only so much sand in there. You know, and you know what? Sometimes we think we got all this sand left, and then all of a sudden you're at the gates, and and you thought you had a whole half a life to live. You know, so
It's one of the great delusions of the human experience is the fact that we all die and we literally don't know when it's going to happen. And we engage in life as though it's a really long time away, most of us. Some of us understand more acutely than others because of the context. Most of us like to not think about it. And I think death is a particularly interesting conversation because everybody must walk that journey. Everybody must come to that reckoning and go through those moments where everything slows and the lights go down and the transition happens. That is one of the hallmarks of the human or life experience, if we even go bigger than humans and into the world of animals, trees, the whole world. Everything has a cycle.
yeah, and I have to add something to you is that I'm actually I'm not afraid of death because I've reconciled like every relationship at this point, reconciled every wrong that I might have done with any individual. Like I live right now in a state where anything that was in my past has already been like reconciled, apologies, things that nature, accountability. And if I were to go, it would be sad because there's a lot of things that I do want to build and do. I'm still young. I'm just 37, but I kind of live confidently and I walk confidently with every step that God is putting me into, is guiding my life in the right direction to execute what I need to do for myself, my family, my business, my community. Um, so if he decides that it's time to take me, then it's time to go. But I just think at this point I've hopefully set a strong enough example for my kids, and just pressing forward from there. So
Okay. I have an interesting question for you. And that is, if we look back at 21-year-old you, and I think I just heard you say 37. So if we do some math, we're like 16 years on from that sliding doors moment where you understood the choice point. And 16 years later, you're a human who is arguably very successful, working to stop or thwart or interrupt the intergenerational trauma that you received from your father, and that you were as shielded as much as you could have been from your mother. And you are working in the growing of your beautiful kids to have a different experience of life. You are a pattern interrupter. You are a disruptor of that, and a disruptor probably in your work life as well, is what I can gather based on what I know about you, which is very little. So my next curious question is around this sense of tidiness that I think I heard you talk about, so that if your end was now, you would know that things were neat and tidy. My question, and I think there's real wisdom here in this very specific thing, is it is one thing to be able to tidy up what you have done to other people. There's a decision, there's a learning, a reflection, and a letter or a conversation that apologizes as a gift to that person, whether they pick it up or not. The piece of wisdom that I think you might hold, that I'd love to kind of work through is you had things done to you that were below the line, the unforgivables. And when you talked me through being ready because you feel clean, your dad, that person, was included, so far as I could tell, in that statement, which means my guess is that is not a human who has taken responsibility or apologized. I could be really wrong, which means you have been able to organize that within yourself so that your relationship no longer spikes you the way that perhaps it could have. And if all of that is true, and I could be very wrong, then I would like to talk about that bit and how you figured that out, because I think there's wisdom in that. Hey there, Meg Tuohey here with a quick and exciting announcement. As a psychologist, coach, and founder of the Wisdom Lab, I've had the privilege of helping thousands of individuals break free from the vicious cycles holding them back and tap into their infinite inner wisdom. If you're tired of feeling unheard, unseen, and stuck in the same old struggles, the Wisdom Lab is the breakthrough you've been yearning for. This on-demand program guides you through a powerful process to shatter emotional barriers, overcome deep-rooted blocks, and experience the profound transformation you deserve. In just 4 hours, you'll gain the tools and insights to revolutionize your life from the inside out. Want to learn more? Click or tap the link in the show notes for all the details. Okay, now back to the episode.
Yeah. I've definitely had to reconcile the relationship with my dad. There came a point where I had to just go see him, give him a hug, and just tell him I love him and I forgive you. And I had to just let everything go because there was quite a number of years that I didn't let it go and I brought it up and I had resentment and I was angry, and I had all of these memories, even things with my sister. I had all these angry memories and distasteful things that I was like, Dad, how could you? Because I'm a grown adult now. So like I have memories. I know exactly what he did, and I was carrying that. It was like I was carrying like this bag, like almost like an ankle shackles for many, many years, and I had to just go to him and I just had to release it. I had to surrender it. I had to give it to God and say, this is your problem now, and he took that from me and he said, you need to apologize. And that's what I did. I went to my dad, gave him a hug, apologized, and not apologize. I accepted. I told him I forgave him, and my dad in his own way showed, um, that what's the word I'm looking for when you did something wrong and you're sorry about it.
Like, and
He
comprehending.
showed he showed
Yeah.
yeah, he showed that he was, uh sorry for what he did. And but whether he showed that or not, I had to release myself because I was starting to have a family, I was starting to have kids, I was starting to build my business pretty significantly, and I didn't want any dead weight. I didn't want anything dragging me down. So um I think that goes to the wisdom of like you have to let things go. You can't hold things on your over your head and have this black cloud for so many years. um and life's too short to have those things. you know and whether my dad wanted to um continue to feel like he was right the whole time, or when he was wrong, then that's his problem. And my dad's still not perfect. My dad's still doing whatever he's doing, but it no longer affects me. I just focus on my family, my business, what I have going on now.
So I love that you were able to share and articulate that with us. I feel like it is one of, sometimes in life, we find some things easier to do than other people do. And sometimes we find things that are harder to do that other people might find easier. Like it's just sort of the cross we bear of being the humans, right? So my curiosity to you is I can hear that that process to decide to forgive wasn't as fraught as what other people's process to forgive or organize that confusion and pain was. For you, it was perhaps still difficult. Don't hear me say it's not difficult, but perhaps it was somewhat innate in you to be able to find a pathway through that. And I just wonder if it's possible if you could unwind the strength, and I mean that from a strengths perspective, like as in a character strength, it's an easier thing for you to access, what it is that you were able to do or organize in yourself so that you could allow him into your life and allow him to essentially stay the same and not hold that against him, and to genuinely be able to knit that relationship back together with your leadership, not with his. And I mean no disrespect to him whatsoever. I'm trying to understand the how you crossed that path. I was going to say bridge, which is an interesting analogy back to your 21. How you knit that bridge together.
Oh man. So it was 2000 and I think it was like 2016 or so. I had in 2016, almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago, um I had gotten back from deployment, and it was my last deployment, and I was already working on my business for like a year at this point. And I was already having I had very fast success in business. And I was, just to give you an idea, I mean, I was making my annual salary in a month in my business that the Navy was paying me. I was making that monthly, but the Navy was paying me, yearly. See what I'm saying? So, and I was still in the Navy, by the way, for 4 years when I first started my business because of my contract. So I couldn't get out. But I tell you that because, you know, the business piece is important because that's when I really started to apply myself and my leadership that got me really advanced in my Navy career. I made E6 in 5 years when it takes the average person 12 years to make E6, which is like a high level supervisory rank. So that just goes to show you that I am really good at helping other people get what they want. And that's really, if you want to have success in business, that needs to be your goal. Focus on other people winning. And that's what I did really well when I was in the military. So when I started to apply that into the business world, and I saw that, wow, if I can help other people hit their goals in their businesses, like I make a lot of money. It was a very easy concept to understand. So I started to just really understand the value of time. My perception of time really morphed, where I saw children without homes or schools and sleeping on corners, on the street in jungles. And like, it just, all of that really started to change my perspective of how great we have it in the United States, or, beautiful places like Australia or Canada. Like, it's not third world like some of these places that I visited. So uh yeah, so my perception of like my value of my time really really changed. So then I really started to look at, okay, the Navy pays me, and I'll get to my point here, but the Navy pays me this per hour, $30. Okay, if I work in my business that same hour, I'm making $300 an hour. It's like, okay, this is more valuable, right? So then I started to look at not just monetarily with my time, how valuable it was. I started to look at how much time am I spending mentally putting my thoughts on things that aren't serving me, right? I started to shift my paradigm to, no, I need to optimize myself for growth. I need to optimize myself for growth. and progression, not things that are going to drag me down. Because before that, I would think about, I would have the PTSD, I would have thoughts and things that I seen at war. I would have the memories of my father and all of that from childhood, right? I would even have memories of things that happened last week where I got a flat tire and I got pulled over and got a ticket or something, like I would let these things just compound and fester in my brain and drag me down emotionally. And honestly, all of it was out of my control. It was 100, all these things were 1,000% out of my control. I had nothing, there's nothing I can do or say to make these situations better. They're all in the past, they're all done, you know? So now as a business owner, I'm like, okay, I'm making 10 times as much money. The value of my time is really important. I need to be focused on things that are serving me. So whenever thoughts and ideas are coming to my brain that are dragging me down and depressing me, I'm not interested in that. I'm no longer interested in that. So I started to really shift and like pull all the way down to how I spent my free time. What was I doing in my free time? Going out with people, drinking, chasing girls, okay, doing all the things, right, that you do when you're single and you don't value your time, okay. Started to cut all those things out. I started to train really hard in the gym. I started, well, see what I'm actually putting into my body, right? Um, and all of these things came back to, I want to utilize my time more effectively. And then I found a woman, my wife, and we started to have children. It's like, okay, now time is even more important because I have a wife now. She expects my time. I have a business that expects my time for growth. I have a first and I have a body. My health is important. That expects time. Now I have children and other humans in this world that expect my time so that they can grow up healthy and be taken care of. So I just went through those phases of just, it was always about optimizing my time so that I can spend it effectively doing the things that I love. And ultimately, that was being with my family and being with my kids. So going back to my dad, all of this stuff that happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I'm not even interested in worrying about that stuff anymore. And then also, during that time too, my wife, who's a huge blessing in my life, um, she is a Catholic, strong Catholic. I grew up Christian, not Catholic, even though my mom's Catholic. I grew up a little bit more Christian because of my grandparents. Um, but my wife's super strong Catholic, really great parents, three brothers and sisters, very, very close, very, very loving. Right? They have every meal together at the table. The TV's turned off. There's no screens or TVs on in the house. They pray before each meal together, right? They individually pray before they wake up out of bed, before they go to sleep at night. They go to church regularly, read the Bible, pray the rosary, all of these things, all these, and it's all, they were all beautiful things, and living a life that, that it's like in the Bible, but it's all positive things. You don't have to necessarily be like a religious or Christian. The things that you can pull out of a Bible, it's all positive things. Like, you can't tell me, if you don't follow Psalms or these stories and lived your life in a sense, that you're not going to have a good result. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like it's almost common sense, but most people don't like open the Bible or know that you don't have to be religious to be a good person. Like, if you're a good person, you're probably following a lot of things that are in the Bible anyway. So my wife, she brought in this whole other sense of like love and meaning and passion to our relationship. And I didn't have that growing up, right? I had yelling and screaming and depression and stress and in all of the things growing up as a kid. Um, so when I saw my wife and I saw her family and I saw how much of a unit they were and how much love there was there, I immediately fell in love with her, you know? So so that really opened my eyes to what's different, because I dated other women. Some of them I saw their families, but I still saw brokenness there. And we all have our brokenness. This is not a downplay on anyone. But I just saw a different thing that I didn't know was possible with my wife. So I'm building my business. I'm optimizing my time. Now I meet her. We're having kids. And I'm just like, this dad, I just learned of like a new love I didn't even know. And I went through like the spiritual journey with my wife where, we got married in the church, and I had to go through a 9-month process to be able to be eligible to marry in the church. And I think going through that process, that's when I really surrendered and just really let go of like a lot of things that were holding me down in my life. And that drove me all the way to the point where I knew what I needed to do. I gave it to God and I knew what I needed to do, and I needed to go home. We went home for Christmas one year. We had dinner and we were standing outside of a restaurant after dinner. And I just walked up to my dad and I gave him a hug. Just told him I love him and that I forgive him. And I don't have any resentment towards him. I know that he was troubled and broken as a child as well. And he's got his own traumas that aren't addressed. And I can't, in a sense, like, you want to be mad at people for doing bad things, but you don't know what their trauma's like. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And I know my dad has dark stuff that he doesn't address, nor does he even have the wherewithal or understanding to even start. So you just gotta love them, But that doesn't mean you have to have them in your life either. I don't have a relationship with my dad. I don't. We don't call each other. We don't text each other. We don't make plans to vacation and see each other. They don't see my girls, unfortunately. He hasn't he hasn't earned that right, and the way he conducts himself isn't healthy to the environment that I'm trying to raise my children in. So I can't have him here, but that doesn't mean I hate him. I love him, but it doesn't mean I have to be around him, you know?
I really understand what you're saying, and I think that is a very profound explanation of, and I mean this word really thoughtfully, but the organization of your internal self to be able to be boundaried, which is what's good for you, and also at peace, and to have eased that relationship and let it be what it is. You don't fight what it is. You might wish it was different, but you allow it to be what it is. And at the same time, it's not holding you back. It's not a weight on you, and it is resolved in you so that all of that potential old confusion and pain is resolved. And that gives you more access to energy so that you can optimize the time in the spaces that mean so much to you. I think that is very wise.
If you don't stop and look back and appreciate, you sometimes forget. It's really good to have those pauses. Like, I do have those pauses sometimes where I just stop where I'm at and I look back and I'm like, man, I've came this far. This is great, you know. And then there's times you do this, you do a podcast and someone's bringing it out, and there's that pause, and I just had a moment where I'm just like, it just makes the future every more exciting, because it's like if we got through all that, we're gonna be able to get through anything. I mean, like, I've also had times where in business over the last 10 years where there's multiple times where I thought, oh, this is it. It's not going to work anymore. I made should I get a job, or am I doing the right thing? Like, have those doubt creeps in, and and the doubt isn't just doubt. It's just because, wow, significant things like went wrong. Like, oh crap, like, but we got through that. I got through that. Me and my wife got through it, and we're here now, and we're flourishing. You know,
I feel like you have a beautiful, fresh sheet of paper and you've got quite a lot already sketched, but there's so much possibility. And I love that for you. I'm going to set a scene as we start to close out today's conversation. I want us to gather on the back, or should we be on the front porch? The back porch. It's like sun setting, it's perfect temperature. It's like very good temperature. I always put fireflies because we don't have them in Australia and I think they're pretty magical. You get your drink of choice. You can have more than one drink. You can have all the drinks. You've got your favorite drink. You're at the right temperature. And we're just settling ourselves down into some outside sofas. And there's a space for our listener, and there's you and there's me. And we're at the end of this kind of big conversation. We've been here together. My last question is sort of very open, but it seems to me that we tracked through your life in quite lovely straight lines where we can see impacts of things and what it meant at different junctions of your life and big decision points where you had choices and you turned towards the things that you wanted or you felt called to or that perhaps God showed you. And you've moved your life towards what it is that makes sense to you. As we sit in this last peaceful part of the night, what last things do you want us to know?
There's a quote that just comes to mind, and it's a quote by Virginia Satir. You know who that is?
I don't, but I feel like I do. I feel like I've seen her name written somewhere, like a book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's a legendary author. Yeah,
there we go.
and she's got a quote that says, "Most people choose the certainty of misery to the misery of uncertainty." So most people choose the certainty of misery to the misery of uncertainty, and that quote to me is like it just blows me away when I think of it. Because it's like if you're standing in front of two doors, for example, right? You're standing in front of two doors. Door behind door number one, it's the life as you know it. It's the life maybe with the same job, the same car, the same house, the same circumstances, right? You're miserable there, right? You're not happy there. You want to get out of it. You know there's a better opportunity for you somewhere. You know there's something you could be doing for yourself, a better life, maybe better opportunities for your family. But you're certain of that misery. So you'll 99% of the time choose that door because the other option is door number two, which is the misery of uncertainty. You don't know exactly what's behind the door, right? It's like looking at a new opportunity, starting a new business, a new relationship, going to therapy for the first time, right? Doing a new thing for the first time. It's uncertain and it's a miserable feeling because we all are humans and we all like closed loops, right? Closed loops. If you a minute you open space and it breaks the cycle, we like certainty. So doing things that make us uncomfortable doesn't provide us certainty. But you know, I've lived my life up until this point where I am a risk taker. I would probably say I'm a high risk taker, a calculated risk taker. And I have not gotten to where I am at in my life, in my marriage, as a dad, uh, in certainly in business. I've not gotten here by going through door number one. I've gotten here by always choosing door number two, but going in with a calculated risk of I don't know what the result might be. I don't know exactly how I'm going to get there, but I know that I believe in myself enough that I will figure it out. And you do not have to have it all figured out to go through door number two. You just have to go in with a strong desire for change and you will find it. If there's why does the quote exist if there's a will, if there's a way? That quote exists for a reason. People try to act like, oh, it's just a quote. No. If you want something, you're going to figure it out. So, um, if any of you guys listening here to me and Meg, strongly consider that in your life. which doors are you walking through? Are you a door number one person or door number two? Because you have to choose door number two almost every single day of your life, believe it or not. I'm not talking about making one decision. It's continuing to choose, because the only way you grow and prosper is continuing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, which creates uncertain times. But through uncertain times, if you can get comfortable with uncertainty for short periods of time, that has a compounding effect. Just trust your instruments, trust your process, trust what you're doing. If you've done enough due diligence and you've taken enough calculated risks, you will get to where you're trying to go. Even if it doesn't work out, you can still turn around and look back and say, I have an experience that I can learn from. Put that in your tool belt and keep going forward.
It's super helpful. And I love the analogy of door one and door two. I certainly understand what it's like to choose door two and the level of uncertainty, because I describe it as walking down a path and the light doesn't turn on. You know, those sensor lights don't turn on until your foot's already down and the next one's going. You don't necessarily see the path until you're actually on the path. So I love that analogy and I love that quote. And it makes sense to me that you've built your life the way that you have so intentionally by using that as your compass. I love that. Now, as we wrap up today's episode of Wisdom Stripes, I would like to sincerely thank you, Douglas, for being so open and vulnerable with us today and showing us how you have relentlessly chosen door number two and you've responded to those markers in your life with door number two, even though it was the path unfamiliar. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure, Meg.
In today's episode, Douglas shared his wisdom around death, life, community, connection, belonging, and being a dad and a husband, as well as a CEO and visionary. He's an open, brave, wise man. He's also a leader and visionary in his field. If you've got a moment, please leave us a 5-star review so that other people can hear the wisdom that belongs in this episode, and subscribe so that you'll see our episodes drop. If you'd like to keep updated, please follow me at Meg Tuohey Official on Instagram, and you can follow Douglas at @Douglas James. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Meg Tuohey, and this is Wisdom Stripes. Thank you for listening to this episode of Wisdom Stripes. Follow me on @Meg Tuohey Official and leave a comment and review. I'm looking forward to meeting you here next time on Wisdom Stripes.